Allow me to extend a warm welcome to all the viewers on the internet and around the world. It is sunrise on YouTube, morning on Facebook, noon on Twitter, midday on Threads, afternoon on Twitch, sunset on Instagram, and evening on Rumble. I am your host, the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. We are broadcasting live directly from the sanctum of solitude and the citadel at the end of time. Good evening, everyone. I am the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, he who remains, the master of the deceptive arts, and of course, the voice of the vasectomites. And today I wanted to give you yet another reason why you should get a vasectomy. I wanted to talk about your addiction to a very powerful, very potent substance that quite frankly is being pushed through society without any warning, any regulations, and any law against it. Every day I turn on the news and I'm hoping that somebody will address this tremendous pandemic, this substance that is just ravaging through men, women, and children alike. I watch all kinds of platforms hoping that someone will address it, but the president, the minister, the prime minister, kings, emperors, leaders of the world, celebrities, none of them have addressed the scourge that is just destroying the livelihoods of many men and women. Today, I wanted us to talk about love and why love is so dangerous, and you should do everything in your power to avoid it. As the master of the deceptive arts, I feed and I'm strengthened by my own paranoia, mistrust, and just general skepticism of human beings as a whole. I really don't trust people, and I'm okay with that. Some people have the need to trust people and to feel trusted themselves. I do not. And I suppose it's for this reason why I am able to see through the hypocrisy and straight at the danger of this dangerous substance, this so-called love that so many people are enduring through such tremendous hardship in the name of this terrible, terrible vice. The paranoia that I have is an instinct that keeps me aware and in tune with the deceptions of others. I say, trust no one and know thyself. Know thyself, right? This is really what the bachelor life all comes down to, knowing yourself. But I not only trust or mistrust these people, I also mistrust their philosophies, particularly the hypocrisy behind philosophies such as virtue, morality, these self-righteous principles that quite frankly are being perpetuated through tremendous propaganda by the knee benders and the counterparts alike, both in common media and on social media online. You see, the difference is my deception is pure deception. It's just deception. I'm just lying to you, right? I'm just lying to you. I'm not even going to tell you my real name. right? It's just pure deception. My lies are untarnished, right? They haven't been filtered through anything because that's all they are. It's just lies, right? It's just lies. For the knee benders and the counterpart, on the other hand, their lies are shrouded with virtue signaling and that self moral, that self righteous morality, right? That indignation, right? That makes them look down on others, which also makes them hypocritical, right? Which is a contradiction, and we know a contradiction is a lie. Because in truth, these are miserable people that are pretending to be happy. These are indebted people who use other people's money so they can pretend to be rich and successful. Right? These are people who are renting their vehicles, renting their homes, and calling it my house in Dubai. Right? No way. No way. No. No. Right? Or they'll tell you things like they own property in parts of the world where it's illegal for foreigners to own property, that kind of thing, right? This is the type of fictitious success that they are claiming, and they're all doing it on other people's money. This is not their wealth. You're not making that much money from streaming, right? These people, quite frankly, squander opportunity in the same way that they mock honest hard work and diligent savings, right? So one of their lies, along with you need to have passion, you need to have love, right? All that stuff. And I'm gonna just blow the lid off this love situation once and for all, right? But one of the things that they're telling you to do is to quit your job and to start a business. Yes, and then they're telling you need to start working for yourself, right? And this is a bad idea, right? I've heard this a million times, and I'm gonna tell you why it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea because you're going to fail, right? It's a bad idea because you're going to fail. And it's bad advice because they're sending you out of a place where, quite frankly, you are fairly successful. Maybe you're not hitting your peak yet. Maybe you're not where you're meant to be yet. But they're asking you to leave a place where you're fairly successful to go and do something where they know you're going to fail, right? You should only be starting a business if you know that business is going to be successful, if you know that you are going to be rich, right? If you have, I don't mean know in your heart, I mean you are guaranteed for success, right? So, for example, you should be starting a business only because somebody has offered you X amount of money to do a job for them, right? So somebody says to you, hey, Ancient One, I've heard you read these articles. I would like you to come work for me and read 10,000 books, make audio files, and I will pay you $1 million. Under those circumstances, I would say I will happily stop doing what I'm doing in order to do what you're doing because I can see the guaranteed success in working for myself doing that. And after those books, I can do other books and I can do other books and I can do other things. This makes sense when you're working for yourself because you already have a landing point, right? You already know I'm going from here to there, and there is clearly defined in terms of contract, in terms of what you're going to make, right? And in terms of how long you're going to be there for, right? But you shouldn't be leaving a secure opportunity to go and take a risk somewhere else, right? Sun Tzu says, put yourself first beyond the possibility of defeat before you go and seek the war. He who is destined to fail first fights and then seeks victory, whereas he who is destined for victory first secures himself and then goes and fight, right? So you really need to think strategically about starting your own business, right? Only those with the guarantee of great wealth should take that risk. Until then, you should be patient, you should be cultivating your resources, and you should be growing your skills. And when you have the skills enough, the experience enough, the resources enough, when you're strong enough and the foundation is guaranteed enough and your financial success is secure enough, only then should you proceed. And then you can proceed with absolute confidence. But don't go giving up a good opportunity just for status and style, just for you to say, I'm working for myself. Money doesn't work that way. It doesn't matter if you make $1 million working for somebody else or you make $1 million working for yourself. $1 million is $1 million, no matter how you dice it. The difference is this side, they guarantee you $1 million every year, and on this side, it depends. Right? When you're a business person, it all depends. Right? So what they'll tell you is, oh, but next year you could make 2 million. Yes, you could also lose 2 million. Right? They'll never tell you that. They never tell you about their losses, these people. And when they do, they brush over them and they say, yeah, but I made it past that. And what they don't tell you is how close they came to a definite end. The end of their finances almost led to the end of their lives. They don't tell you that. They just tell you that it's just a hurdle. It's not a hurdle. You destroy yourself financially, you're finished. You take that risk and you mess it up. Remember, 95% of businesses fail within 1 year. This doesn't mean they survive 1 year and then fail. No, 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 no. Some go in the first day, some go in the first week, others go in the first month, and most of them are gone within 8 months. Just the best of the best are going to make it to 1 year before they collapse, right? So be very careful with the type of advice that you take, right? And the type of philosophy that you follow, right? I'm all for doing your own thing. I'm all for independence, but I'm not for risking money. I would not risk a single cent of my money for independence. No, absolutely not, right? In truth, I always say humble yourself. Humble yourself to the almighty dollar. Humble yourself to the almighty dollar. Don't play games with your money. Don't take risks with your money. If you're sure you're going to be success, go ahead and announce your business and do what you need to do for your business to be successful. Right? And this is the type of self-praising, self-righteous, hypocritical advice that comes with many knee benders and their morality, right? And then they'll tell you things like you gotta be passionate about what you do. You gotta have fire about what you do, right? Things like that. Things like that are all very good, but I'm a person who believes in diligent strategies. And I believe that a good strategy has more details than it does passion. I'd rather deal with a person who is all about the details than a person who's all about the passion, right? Because the more details we have, the more information, the more clarity we have, the more statistics we have, the better decisions we can make. But passion, love, I'm going to deal with love today. And I'd like for us to take a real honest look at what that's all about, right? It's all about the biggest lie. The biggest lie of all is this love, right? So, what is love? Love is defined as an intense feeling of deep affection. An intense feeling of deep affection. A simple and seemingly harmless meaning, right? But there's another word that I want to define, right? This is the word high. High as in the context of drugs, right? It says high in the context of drugs refers to the altered state of consciousness and perception that a person experiences after taking, I beg your pardon, certain psychoactive substances. It's a temporary condition characterized by changes in mood, thinking, and behavior. The term is often used to describe the intoxicating effects of recreational drugs, right? Now, compare that definition with the definition of love, right? Defined as an intense feeling of deep affection, right? Now, I would argue that the second definition, right? The second definition, an altered state of consciousness and perception, right? A temporary condition characterized by changes in mood, thinking, and behavior. I would say that that is a more accurate definition of what actually love is, right? Than the first. You see, the second definition is closer because the first definition, by comparison, is a philosophical, theoretical, and hypothetical expression of intoxication. It gives a positive tone to what intoxication actually is, right? Altered states of consciousness and perception, right? Changes in mood, thinking, and of course, behavior and your actions. I've said before, in my own words, that love is a chemical reaction brought about by a mixture of various other chemicals that cause a cascade of firing in your synapses, which ultimately leads to your thoughts being clouded. So it clouds your thoughts and your reality, right? When these chemicals are interacting in your brain, they make you believe unbelievable things about yourself, just impossible things about yourself and your counterpart. The counterpart believes that she can suddenly start cooking and baking 4-course meals every day when she's never done that before. She suddenly believes that she has the capacity for nurturing and motherhood. She thinks she's just gonna turn it on, and she's gonna know how to make how to put a diaper on a baby. You think you're just gonna be able to figure that out? You know how to clean a baby, how to feed a baby, how to soothe a baby. She thinks that she's just gonna know how to do these things, while you, on the other hand, you believe that you can continue to make this person happy with gifts and little kisses and, shows of affection. You believe this in your mind. You believe you can sustain this for 30, 40, 50 years, right? You believe that you can raise kids. And ironically, the counterpart believes the same thing, right? So both of you, both your reality is clouded. Your thinking is clouded. Your perception is unclear. And now you're believing that you can do just unbelievable things. Things that, quite frankly, other people train years to master. You think you'll be able to achieve this in an instant, instinctively. let's continue, right? And see that both of you, your spouse, along with your kids, right, are under a very powerful concoction and potion of your own mental devices, right? That is, quite frankly, at the same level as a Schedule 1 illegal substance in every country in the world, right? This substance I cannot name, right? But it is possibly the most popular substance in the world, right? Everybody knows what it is. Equal to love. Equal to love. Think about what that is. Everybody knows this and this, they do the same thing, right? It's a powdery thing. And this is why you can't put your faith and your trust in the honesty and the priorities of knee benders and counterparts. Right here. This is why you cannot trust them, because their minds are not truly their own, right? They are not sound in their minds. Again, I've told you that counterparts and knee benders, quite frankly, even the counterpart, can be very effective in their professional environment, right? They can be very good, very well controlled, very successful even. But in their private lives, right, they just make the most outrageous decisions, just the most surprising things, which is why it's always a scandal when you look into a knee bender's life, right? It's always a scandal when you look into a counterpart's life. If somebody's successful in their public life at work, you can be certain that if you look into their private lives, you're gonna find a mess, right? That's because for the most part, their reality is completely clouded, right, by the chemicals that are happening in their head. And it's affecting almost every other aspect of their lives, except for work. Because work, quite frankly, is a very well controlled environment, one where I feel very comfortable in, right? But many people may not, because they like the free flowing insanity of chemical LOV3, otherwise known as love, right? You have to also understand that most people have spent their whole lives under the influence of the chemical love, right? The combination of chemicals that create love. Not not only have they been under the influence, they've been chasing that influence quite insensibly and obsessively, right? So they've spent their whole lives chasing it and then trying to maintain it and keep it, right? And there are some people who, quite frankly, may have never been in their right minds. They have never actually had a sober, conscious, independent thought because their entire life has been spent under the influence of this very powerful drug. Right? I mean, this thing is given out to everyone. Love is given to everyone. Good people, bad people, short people, thin people. Everybody wants love. Right? And everybody wants to be given love, and everybody wants to believe that they have the capacity to give love, right? Especially to kids who then grow up their whole lives having experienced love, and then all they want to do is chase that feeling. All they want to do is chase that feeling as adults, right? Which is why the desire for love is so powerful in the counterpart, right? And the knee bender, quite frankly, because they're addicted to it. And they've always been addicted to it, right? And when the love ends, because quite frankly, a crazy situation. You got one person who's high on love, you got another person who's high on love, and the both of you come together to create the storm. It's always described as a storm, right? Because you got both these chemicals, both of you have got these chemicals flying through you, right? Your synapses are firing out of control, right? It's literally a lightning storm up there. And when it ends, what happens is both of you become erratic, unhinged, belligerent, disrespectful, right? Because in some serious way, you are experiencing withdrawal symptoms from a very tremendously powerful intoxication, right? As described here, an altered state of consciousness and perception, right? A temporary condition characterized by change in mood, thinking, and behavior. Isn't this what happens during a breakup? When people become erratic and unhinged, they start insulting each other, all kinds of things, right? And what today's article is going to demonstrate and prove is that, in fact, love is not just a philosophy for life. And if it was, it's a terrible philosophy for life, right? Rather, love is a very dangerous, uncontrolled, uncontrollable, unregulated, ungoverned, and ungovernable substance. Not only can you not write laws for it, if you did, there would be an absolute revolution. You can do nothing about love. But it's still there, and it's still potent, and it's still troubling, right? And it's important for you to understand what it is so that you can know how to respond and how to act. Because for all you know, the reason why you have problems, the cause of all your problems, could very well be the fact that you are addicted to a very powerful, very dangerous chemical called love. The title of the article very sharply says, falling in love hits the brain like intoxicants do. I'm not going to say that word. I'm going to use a euphemism, right? But you can see it for yourself. So it hits the way, it hits your brain the same way that a sugar-like, salt-like substance does, an intoxicating substance, right? This was written by Christian Nordquist. I'm so sorry, I know I pronounced that wrong. Christian Nordquist. It was written October 27 or published October 27, 2010, and it comes from medicalnewstoday.com. Actually, we have two corresponding articles which are going to help us to understand more clearly the combination or the link, right? The link between what's happening in your brain and addiction, right? That close link between love and addiction. It says here, falling in love affects intellectual areas of the brain and triggers the same sensation of euphoria experienced by people when they take illicit. Researchers from the Syracuse University reveal in an article in Journal of Intimacy Medicine. Okay, I didn't expect to talk about intimacy today, but it seems to be everywhere. So, effectively, that first sentence says it very clearly. Falling in love affects intellectual areas of the brain and triggers the same sensation of euphoria experienced by people when they take illicit substances. Right? So you're pretty much getting intoxicated. Right? You're pretty much getting intoxicated. That's why they say love can be intoxicating, right? Because it hits the same areas in the same way. as an illicit substance. Just remember that. Just remember that, right? Remember, this is all happening in your brain. None of this is happening in the physical realm. This is all happening in your mind. The study, called the neuroimaging of love, found that several euphoria inducing chemicals, these are the chemicals I was telling you about, such as vasopressin, adrenaline, oxytocin, and dopamine, are released in 12 areas of the brain that work simultaneously. Isn't that what I just described? That it's a combination of these drugs. Right now, I didn't remember them off the top of my head, but here they are: vasopressin, adrenaline, oxytocin, and dopamine. These are all feel good drugs. These are uppers, right? These are uppers. They are released in 12 areas of the brain. This is pretty much the whole brain, right? So they're not released in 12 areas in the same place. They are released in 12 areas all over the brain and spill over. So remember, the brain is synapses. It's just electrical impulses. So when these impulses are hit in different areas of the brain, it effectively affects the whole brain. The entire structure of the brain is affected by these chemicals, right? And it hits you at the same time. There's nothing you can do about it, right? The authors also reveal that falling in love can occur in a fifth of a second. So, is love linked to the brain or to the heart? That works faster than any other drug known to mankind. A fifth of a second. Nicotine is said to be the fastest drug to hit the brain, and it'll hit the brain in like 11 seconds, something like that, right? Like less than 11 seconds, nicotine will affect the brain, and that's super lightning. This happens in a fifth of a second. You don't even know it's happening, and it's done, right? So just think about that. It's this powerful combination of chemicals that happens to you before you even know it's happening. How dangerous is that? The scientists also found that when couples had just fallen in love, their blood levels of NGF, nerve growth factor, had gone up. NGF is a molecule that is key in human social chemistry, and in Love at First Sight, I think it's Dr. Ortigue, believes their findings confirm that love does have a scientific basis. Love is a scientific action. It is happening in your brain, but we have a philosophical expression for it, right? So your first expression of this chemical, this love, will be a philosophical one, which then attaches itself to you. And for the rest of your life, you're looking for a philosophical love, when in fact, it's just chemicals in your brain, right? When a love affair goes wrong or when it ends, there is a significant risk of depression and emotional distress for at least one of the partners, right? So you're effectively you're going through withdrawal symptoms, right? So they call it a significant risk of depression and emotional distress. That's what they call heartbreak for at least one of the partners. Heartbreak is, it means when you have that chemical still pumping into you, right? It's still happening in your brain, but it's not, you don't feel that reciprocation, right? So it needs to be amplified. This is the irony of it, right? So when it's just you by yourself and it's not returned, it's not reciprocated or amplified, it causes distress. Just think about how insane that is. That is insane. That is literal insanity, right? This is why people become obsessed with people who, quite frankly, don't want them anymore, right? Because it's all happening in their brain. The chemicals in their brain are just going off crazy, and the synapses are just firing. Right? Let's continue. The authors say that this study has revealed facts that could have implications for mental health and neuroscience research. Absolutely. Absolutely nothing will affect your mental health more than this issue of love. These chemicals, whether they're in or whether they're out, right? Um, it says if we can identify which parts of the brain are activated and stimulated by love, clinicians and therapists might have a deeper understanding of what is going on when treating a lovesick patient, the author believes. Um, Quite frankly, they are going through withdrawal symptoms, right? They are going through withdrawal symptoms. Their brains have been hit with a surge of dopamine, endorphins, all kinds of things. They list them here: adrenaline, vasopressin, oxytocin, dopamine, um, you know, and then it all stops. So they go through withdrawals because it doesn't just stop, right? Your brain's been flooded with all this. So your brain needs to cleanse all that out. And that can take some time. This is called getting over someone, right? When you're getting over someone, it means your brain is literally clearing out all of those toxins, all of those, you know, chemicals that were clouding your judgment, which is why people become less emotional after relationships. They start to become more logical. Men start to become more productive because their judgment isn't clouded anymore, right? Because that chemical is gone. Which is why the counterpart tries to induce you to love them. They'll always ask you, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Which is in a way of I don't know if they're doing it subconsciously or not, but they're trying to confirm, do you still have those, are those synapses still firing in the same way? Do you still have that addiction? Right? Do you still have that need? Am I still fulfilling that need? Right? Because the addiction is so strong that if one person doesn't fulfill it for a knee bender, what they'll do is they'll just go find somebody else, right? But what they won't do is live without that addiction. It's very powerful stuff. Um, we know there are various types of love, and it appears that different parts of the brain are affected depending on what type of love there is. That's interesting. The love between a mother and of offspring, for example, what we call unconditional love, is generated by the common and different brain areas, which includes the middle of the brain. The reward part of the brain is stimulated when passionate love is involved, as well as associated cognitive areas of the brain which deal with higher thought functions such as body image. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. So, long term love, it appears, is stored in a completely, or functions rather from a completely different part of a brain than reward short term love, right? Which is, it makes sense to me because I see the brain in two areas, right? I see the pleasure part of the brain, which quite frankly can be fickle, and the pain side of the brain, which really can be more disciplined and hardworking. So if something induces pleasure for you, you're going to store it in the short term part of the brain, right? The chew and spit out part of the brain. But for longer term commitments, that kind of thing that are going to require you to be disciplined and stable and hardworking, like children, which they say unconditional love. In other words, this is a long term, lifelong responsibility, right? And for that, you're going to need some discipline, right? It's not going to be a fleeting emotion Very interesting stuff. It says the Syracuse University team worked with researchers from West Virginia University as well as the Geneva University Psychiatric Center in Switzerland. Ongoing research on how fast love in the human brain works should be concluded soon, the authors wrote. So that's just the conclusion for that article. What I want to do is I want to read another short article. It's actually an excerpt of a short article that is going to supplement what we have just witnessed and read in this particular article. So the second article is entitled Illicit Substance Withdrawal Explained, right? So what it's gonna so we talked about the effects of falling in love, which are like this particular illicit substance, right? The sugar salt type of illicit substance. Now, let's see what happens, right? Let's say in a breakup, right? So let's compare a breakup to what happens when you stop using illicit substances, right? Let's see if these two things are comparable, right? And I believe it's going to indicate that they are. The title has been read. It was medically reviewed by Dr. Alex Nguyen. We have read work by Dr. Nguyen before. It's been insightful. Actually, recognizing the doctor's name is becoming quite the celebrity on this platform. It was also written by, I believe it's Dr. Adam Roden. So it was reviewed by Dr. Nguyen and written by Dr. Roden. And it was updated quite recently on the 16th of June 2025. It comes also from the same website, medicalnewstoday.com. It reads, illicit substance, as we've described it, is a central nervous stimulant that some people use recreationally. Please don't use illicit substances. If someone uses this illicit substance regularly, then stops taking it, they may develop withdrawal symptoms. This illicit substance is a potentially habit-forming stimulant drug. It comes from the leaves of the cocoa plant. It can be, well, that'll tell you what it is. It can increase levels of dopamine in the brain and may lead to changes in mood and energy, including extreme happiness and mental alertness, irritability, and paranoia. Isn't that, well, I suppose the paranoia comes later as well as the irritability. But isn't that what falling in love is? An increase in dopamine. Dopamine is the substance that we talked about, the chemical earlier, along with others. So it increases dopamine in the brain. It changes your mood and your energy, so you get that adrenaline. There you go. And including extreme happiness and mental alertness, right? And then later, of course, comes the irritability and the paranoia. This is exactly what being in love is like. It is exactly what being in love is like, right? Just like taking a drug. Withdrawal is the term for the physical and mental symptoms a person with a drug dependence or addiction experiences when they suddenly stop or reduce substance use, right? So this is what happens when the relationship ends, right? When the substance is now gone. If someone uses this illicit substance, often such as daily or in increasingly larger amounts, they may develop dependency or addiction, which can lead to withdrawal symptoms when they stop using the substance. So this is really where I wanted us to be, right? This is really where the stuff that I wanted us to look at, right? What are the symptoms of illicit substance withdrawal? People may experience a variety of symptoms during illicit substance withdrawal. For example, adults. Oh, so there were two categories for this. There was adults and there was newborns. For our purposes, I won't be dealing with newborns. I didn't think this was helpful, so I just took the excerpts that are helpful to us. Yeah, I'm not dealing with that whole newborn situation. Why did I get a vasectomy if I wanted to be dealing with newborns? No, I'm not doing that. It says here, the symptoms of illicit substance withdrawal are often mild and not life-threatening. Right, so symptoms of breakups, mild and not life-threatening, right? At least in the real world. Internally, not so much. Common withdrawal symptoms include depression, right? So you feel sad, you feel depressed. Excessive sleep, so you either sleep too much or you don't sleep enough, right? So you can't sleep or you're oversleeping, you're sluggish, you're lazy. Increased hunger or no hunger at all. So some people may, in fact, eat too much because they feel bad. Some people may eat too little. But this is in particular with this particular substance. We're just comparing the substance to the romance wars, the relationships, the falling in love, right? Dysphoria, which is a general sense of unease. Absolutely, absolutely, right? So you do feel unease when the relationship ends, and slow mental and physical activities. Some people may want to dwell in their misery and not want to come out, right? Not want to go and live life. In fact, what's happening is you're going through withdrawal symptoms, and for your brain to process that and cleanse these chemicals out, it takes time and it requires effort, right? Which is why we're always recommending monk mode, right? The longer you stay in monk mode, the less of this chemical effect that will happen to you, right? So the less of this love chemical you have, the less effective it is on you, the less influential it is on you, right? This is why love is so dangerous, right? They treat it like it's a philosophy, but it's actually a physical thing happening to you. And when you come out of that love, you need a detox, a real genuine detox. But you need that detox with purpose. Because a lot of people will come out of it and then go back and find love once again because you're trying to fulfill a false prophecy of morality, right? And virtue and principle, which is wrong, which realistically it's completely wrong, because what you're doing is you're chasing after a chemical feeling in your brain. You are addicted to dopamine, oxytocin, adrenaline, and what was the other one that they named it? There it is. Vasopressin. I need to memorize these drugs. The vasopressin, adrenaline, oxytocin, and dopamine. That's really what you're addicted to. You're addicted to those substances in your brain. And what you're doing is you're hiding behind a philosophy. You're hiding behind philosophy and you're saying that I'm looking for love because I want to provide for a home and a family. I want this and that, when in truth you're just a drug addict. And you don't know it. Because you don't know. They won't tell you that. Right? They won't tell you that it's hitting you the same way as a Schedule 1 substance. And you are responding in the same way that a person who has been affected by Schedule 1 substances is. You're protective. You wanna keep this all to yourself. You're fighting over it, arguing, doing all kinds of things, all kinds of erratic things. And then at the end, you don't even know what you were doing exactly or why, right? But things like folding towels suddenly became a big problem, right? Like you called lawyers and split up your assets because you couldn't fold these towels anymore. And that's because you're behaving in an erratic way. Because your brain is responding the same way as the brain of an addict. And you don't know it because it's been happening to you your whole entire life. The whole system has been telling you, take the substance, take the substance, take the substance. And now you go around chasing it, right? You'll do anything for it. This is the truth, right? They even make movies. They make movies to induce this feeling in you so that you can go out and spend money and do other things in order to chase this feeling. And you cannot explain it and justify it, because what they'll do then is use philosophy to describe, quite frankly, what is a simple physiological action, right? And the reason why men recommend monk mode, and they don't even know why they recommend monk mode, is because you need time to detox, right? It's not about being able to get somebody more attractive or to do or to move on and that kind of thing, because you're not moving on exactly. What you're doing is you are just inducing the same chemical reaction with somebody else. You're not actually detoxing from yourself. That's why you need a year or two of monk mode to clear all that out so you can start to see these things clearly. It concludes, it says here, slowed mental and physical activities. I think we discussed that. Some experiencing substance abuse withdrawal may also have an increased heart rate and blood pressure, so it'll affect your health and mental health also. A doctor can prescribe medications to help manage these symptoms. So you don't really get medication to manage heartbreak, but you do get more or less the same results and the same outcome. So here on the next slide, it says, how long does substance withdrawal last? Now, notice the similarities here. It says substance withdrawal symptoms generally begin within 24 hours of the last use. So let's say you broke up yesterday, right? So maybe the first hour or so is a little bit confusing. Maybe it's bad, but it's not so bad, right? But symptoms may last for 3 to 5 days. So then they start to show, right? In the next week or so, they start to show. Once acute withdrawal ends, this is what they call acute withdrawals. So that first week, that's the first, maybe the worst part of it. A person may experience protracted withdrawal symptoms. Protracted refers to a long duration. These symptoms can last for 1 or 2 months. Sometimes they can last longer than that, right? Sometimes they can last longer than that. The physical symptoms themselves could be gone within a few months. So maybe the brain will flush out those chemicals. But those synapses are going to keep firing, right? So as the time goes, your brain is still addicted to it, and they're going to fire those synapses telling you, get another woman, get another woman, get another girl, get another girl, right? And eventually you're going to go out there and get another girl, right? And get another woman. This is why the advice of many philosophers always starts and ends in the same place. So, you come out of the romance war after a devastating end, either a divorce or like a breakup or something, with domestic issues. I don't know why you moved her in the first place, but let's say you moved her in and it got bad, right? What they'll tell you, as usual, is go to the gym, get your money up, get your muscles, get your education, get your mental health, and then go back and find another counterpart, because they themselves are addicted to this chemical, to this drug called love. That's why all the advice sends you straight back to the place where you're going to get that chemical in abundance. They are going to, when you get there and you tell the counterpart you want love, she will give you love more than you can handle, right? And these symptoms, they can last months. For some people, they can last years, right? Depending on how long your relationship was, right? Depending on how long your exposure to this substance is and how deep that exposure was, right? So if you have kids and you built a family and all kinds of things, that exposure is way more enhanced and can take longer to get over, right? And when you do, a lot of people still don't know what happened to them. They're still dumbfounded by the whole process. But then when they see it start happening again, when they start to see those synapses fire again, they know to withdraw, but they don't really address the issue within them, right? So you're not addressing your own synapses. You're just responding to them after they fire. And what you need to do is you need to be aware that it's all happening inside of you. It's not happening out there, right? It's all in your mind. You need to have self control. That's why we are preaching here self determination, self control, self perseverance, right? It comes down to knowing yourself intimately and with a lot of detail. Let's continue. Protracted withdrawal symptoms can include lethargy, in other words, feeling low, no energy, right? Anxiety, no confidence, unpredictable mood changes. Doesn't that sound like a breakup? Erratic or disturbed sleep patterns, right? So you're staying up all night, sleeping all day, you are not sleeping your full 8 hours. You're staying up all night, sleeping all day, but you're not on vacation, right? It's one thing when you're on vacation and you're just adapting to your cycles, but it's a completely different situation when you have work in the morning, right? Erratic is the operative word there. Strong cravings for the substance, right? And of course, this is what I was saying. This is when you have those memories. You want to go back, you miss them again, even if even if they annoyed you. You hear people saying things like, now that they're gone, the things about them that annoyed me, those are the things that I actually miss. That's telling you that this is an addictive thing, right? Because while you know it's bad for you, you still want it, right? So while you know that, no, this, I don't want to be in a relationship, I'm not, I'm not happy in relationships. I don't enjoy relationships, right? I'm always arguing, fighting, and getting in trouble in relationships. But yet here I am pursuing them. Yet here I am chasing after relationships. So that type of irony can, quite frankly, be frustrating for many men, right? And this is because you now have a craving for a substance that is, quite frankly, should be a Schedule 1 substance. One that you've been receiving your entire life. And now that it's gone, you're going to want it again. You're definitely going to crave love, right? You're definitely going to crave love. Once you don't have love in your life, it is the ultimate thing. You see, we've been using the word substance here, but we should have substituted that word substance with love, with love withdrawal symptoms, and say that they can begin in 24 hours, right? But withdrawal from love can include lethargy, anxiety. It can include unpredictable mood changes, erratic or disturbed sleep patterns, and strong cravings for love. Absolutely, you'll have a strong craving for love. It says if a newborn has NAS, I'm not sure what NAS means. I should, but I do, but I don't remember. Their symptoms can last 1 to 6 months after birth, according to the March of Dimes. Don't know what the March of Dimes is either, right? But effectively, these results are enduring, right? These results are enduring, you know, and and the effects are also enduring. And if you're not careful, right, and aware that this is this is happening to you in your brain, you won't be able to to prevent it within yourself. Because what you're going to do, and a lot of people, is they look externally for the stimulation of love. Right. They look externally, and when they look internally, they only look in terms of philosophy. They don't actually look at the structure of their brain, the chemicals in their brain, the synapses in their brain, to see what's actually happening that induces this. Right. And today we've actually looked at what happens in the brain and compared it to something, quite frankly, that is very, very dangerous. And it is an even match. It is an even match between love and illicit substances. Not only by the way they are induced, in fact, but we know that love's onset is much faster, but the result is the same. So love is much more. So love is a much more potent substance and much more enduring than other illicit substances, because it comes from within you. And I keep saying and telling you every day, you are not smarter than your biology. And if you're wondering, there are moments where people say, oh, I lost control, I don't know what happened, I wasn't myself. And it's yes, because you weren't yourself. You lost control. And when you lost control, you made a baby. And now you're in child support for 18 to 20 years. Right? You lost control, you lost yourself, you bent the knee, and now you're in a marriage where you're divorcing before 10 years. Right? And it's things like that where you underestimate yourself. You underestimate how far against your own interests you will go. And you'll go all the way. You'll go ahead and ruin your whole life and not knowing why you're doing it. There are men who are in their middle ages and older who are still acting like delinquents, like juveniles, right? They act juvenile, petulant, childish, right? And it's not a matter of you are putting on a persona to try and appeal to younger people. I try to do that too, but I fail at it, right? I fail at it. Whenever I use slang, it always comes off as disingenuous. So I find that when I speak as I do, even to younger people, they feel confident enough to respond to me as their true self, right? And I speak to them as my true self, which is why really I try to avoid slang. I'm not pulling that off. I would be better off singing than using slang, quite frankly, right? But back to our point. This is why you lose control of yourself, because your mind is functioning, quite frankly, in the same way as somebody who has consumed a Schedule 1 illicit substance, the most dangerous illicit substance available to man on the black market, or whatever market you people buy your stuff to, red market, illegal things, right? This is one of the more powerful ones, right? At least to my limited knowledge, and one of the most destructive ones. And the consequences, or at least the effects, are nearly the same as falling in love. So what you need to do is you need to prioritize monk mode in a serious way. You really need to prioritize staying even away from intimacy, but away from emotional, mental, relationship connections, right? You need to stay away from those for as long as it is necessary for you to get over this. I don't mean like healing from the relationship. No, no, no. You need to get over the influence of the substances as a whole, right? You need to clean all that out, so that your instincts can return back to your bachelor instincts. Your instincts, because your chemicals, your brain is flooded with chemicals. And even sometimes when you've seen people hear something that is so logical, that is so true, and their brain just won't allow them to believe it. They are in not just denial, they are in delusion, right? You need to allow your brain to cleanse itself of these particular type of chemicals that are happening in your head. And only then will you be able to see and think clearly and rationally. And you'll be able to see, no, going to brunch is expensive. Going on dates is expensive. Going on trips is expensive. I should be planning for my retirement. You'll actually realize that you don't like restaurant food. Not really, because it's unhealthy, it's fatty, right? Like at the end of it, you don't feel really good, feel bloated, right? But you're doing it because you're trying to get that dopamine, that oxytocin, all those substances. You're trying to get that adrenaline, right? And I forgot the other one. You're trying to get all that in your brain so it can at least level you out. But what you need to do is to get it out of your system and start acting and thinking and behaving as your true self. But for most people, you're talking about a lifetime of cleansing. You need years to get over this, right? And then which means you probably need some time in the solitude, and allow the solitude to change you and make you into the true bachelor that you know you can be. But effectively, if you keep clouding your judgment, you keep clouding your vision, you keep clouding your perspective and your reality with the drug called love, eventually you're going to wake up one day and you'll have 4 or 5 kids, and you won't know how you got those kids, right? There's people who are still wondering, where did it all go wrong? There were people who had their whole lives ahead of them, talent, money, sponsorship, and you ask yourself, where did it all go wrong? It all went wrong in their head when they fell in love. And they don't even know it happened. And what they're trying to do is they'll say, love is what gave me strength. Love is what saved me. No, my friend, love is a chemical that is equally matched, evenly matched to a Schedule 1 substance. The type of Schedule 1 substance that, quite frankly, if you found out the president was doing, he would get impeached and fired, right? If you found out your teachers was using the Schedule 1 substance, you wouldn't let that person teach you. Or if you were a parent and found out a teacher was using that particular Schedule 1 substance, you wouldn't allow that teacher to educate your kids. You wouldn't allow policemen to do it. You wouldn't allow anyone. You wouldn't be allowed in the army. You wouldn't be allowed to fly a plane. You wouldn't be allowed to do anything if you were caught with this illicit substance. But you are allowed to run a family feeling like this, under this type of influence. This is why you need to get a vasectomy. The biology that you have is very distinctive and very specific. It's not just physical impulses that you have, it's also your brain fighting against you. You need a biological solution to a biological problem. You cannot have biological things happening to your brain and you think you can resolve them with a philosophy. That's absurd. That's absurd. That's why you need to get that vasectomy. That's why we need to have an action step if you're going to survive in the bachelor life and protect yourself against yourself. You need that vasectomy. You're absolutely going to need that vasectomy before you fall in love again. Because don't get me wrong, you're going to fall in love again. You are absolutely going to fall. Even if you know this, even if you do your monk mode, eventually you're going to meet somebody, they're going to fall in love with you. And their falling in love with you will induce you to fall in love with them. But what you don't want is to have the consequences of insemination follow you around all day. Right? Just knowing that you're going to get somebody pregnant and you ruin both your lives. That's not something that you need. What you need is to be secure in yourself. And you need definite security, not a philosophical mindset, not something where you can, like a mantra where you can say, Bachelor for life, and then all your powers are restored. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Not in a moment of weakness. You need something that is gonna work when you lose your mind, right? Something that will stop your body from betraying you when you no longer have control over your body. Because under these circumstances, it's very clear to me that you're going to lose control over your body and your mind. And you won't even know it's happening. And it'll happen so quickly by the time that it's happened, it'll be too late. Right? It'll be way too late. So what you need is to get a vasectomy so that it's never too late. So that it's never too late. This is the end of the video. I am the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, he who remains in the Phantom Menace, and I'm still at the Sanctum of Solitude. And I'll still be here as long as we continue to have these important discussions about the bachelor life. And as long as we are still 98% down, right? There's still 98% of the world who still, even though they may have heard this message, have not decided to get a vasectomy. So, the work is real and it's plentiful. The war is real and we're losing. So, get a vasectomy. Protect yourself and protect your seed. Thank you for your time. Have a nice day.